Hi, welcome to the introductory video for EDAD 6845, School and Community Relations. My name is Brian Beabout. I'm the professor for this course. I've been teaching it now for about 4 years. This is a Tier 2 course in our Masters of Educational Administration certification for school leaders program. We generally target the course towards K-12 educators pursuing principal certification. It's also an elective in our doctoral education program, and occasionally we have people from outside of the ed-admin field and even outside of the College of Education, which adds nice diversity to the course. I want to lay out a few things in this introductory video just to help situate you in the course. Because it's delivered almost exclusively online, there is a need sometimes at the beginning to help get situated and understand the flow of the course and how things are going to be communicated, how expectations will be set, how things will be assessed. And so hopefully by the end of this video you're feeling like you've been to the first course of our online meeting. I want to cover three main points here the next couple of minutes, and then I'll provide my contact information if you have additional questions. First, I want to cover our textbooks. There's 3 of them for the course. Then I'd like to talk about our course project. And third, I'll talk about the field experience component of the course that those of you in the master's program will be familiar with. Those of you who aren't might be a little bit new. Essentially, this is a course about partnership. Schools exist in communities, and there is much debate about what the optimal relationship between a school, its families, its community, and other political entities ought to be. There's lots of variations of that, and part of our work this semester is going to explore what is the universe of potential relationships that could exist between a school, if you're working in a school, my school, and the community. What is the current state of community and parent relationships at my school, and how can we move forward, and what are the recommendations that I want to make going forward. The course is based on an assumption that schools are institutions that first and foremost serve children, but the children are inextricably connected to the communities where their parents, family members live. And so one cannot serve students and at the same time disserve the community and consider yourself a good school, or a good teacher for that matter, good leader. And so we will essentially be exploring the term partnership this entire semester. You'll see it in the titles of some of our texts, and we will come to know that word hopefully in a very different way than perhaps you might think of it as at a surface level at this point. So let me get off to our first basic idea. First, I want to talk about our textbooks. There are 3 textbooks for the course. The first is by Joyce Epstein, who is the most preeminent scholar on family, community, and school partnerships. She's out of Johns Hopkins University, where she is a partner in the research center on the social, what's the name? Social foundations for educational success for at-risk students. She's spawned a whole lot of her students have gone on to be some of the foremost students in studying parent and community relations, and so you'll read from a number of her folks. That book is very focused on the student, academic, social, emotional learning, and you'll get a lot of educator-based information from there. That contrasts somewhat with the second book by Ted Kowalski, which is a public relations text for educational administrators. So it views the school as the unit of analysis, much more so than the student. That said, very important, it has chapters on school marketing, collecting data, um, something that's become relatively important recently is school safety and facilities safety, crisis management. And so all those topics will be relying heavily on Kowalski to be our primary source reading with some additional items brought in. The third text is the edited volume by Eve Patrikakou, Sam Redding, a few others who survey the research. Most of it is done by sort of the descendants of Joyce Epstein. Some of these people are her students, some of them are her colleagues at Johns Hopkins. But they are looking at all of the various subfields of research having to do with the relationship between the family, the school, and the community, that triangle that's really going to form the basis of our course. So that book is very research heavy. Most of the chapters in there are reporting research. So when it comes to the very end of the semester and you're reporting your improvements to your school's school improvement plan, a lot of the rationale and justification for the proposed changes you're making is going to come from that yellow edited book by Reeve, Sam Redding, and Eve Petrikakou, etc. So that'll be a nice empirical source for a lot of your recommendations you'll make. So those are the three textbooks. They'll be supplemented with Moodle readings, some of which I've authored, some of which are other articles that I've pulled in. And so you won't be doing a lot of going out and collecting literature on your own for this, unless in your recommended changes for your school's community involvement plan you happen to find an area that is really weak in your school that you really need to dig into how that might happen and how you might fund it and how you might implement it. And so for the most part, people read the course readings and then do a lot of the field work to keep their project moving along. The second thing we'd like to talk about is the course project. While I said this course could really be encapsulated by understanding the word partnership, I think that's true. This course is also really just a single project that takes an entire semester, whose end goal is to have a revised school and community relations plan that you can submit to officials at your school that will include a number of components and some steps forward for improving school-community relations at your school. The components in this project will happen at various points throughout the semester, and I'll just sort of list them now. They begin with an analysis of your current school relations plan. So I'm going to give you a couple of theoretical frameworks. You're going to analyze what's happening at your school currently and write up a brief synopsis of where your school is performing well and where it's not performing well in terms of what the experts are saying are best practices in school, community, parent relationships. Excuse me. After that, you'll be moving into an examination of community resources. So from a number of categories that Mavis Sanders lays out in her article, you'll be looking at what are the external sources that I can draw upon, businesses, government, religious, nonprofit sectors, childcare, healthcare, that can help me do what I do better in my school. And I have a piece on different types of community partnerships we'll be looking at, and you'll come up with essentially just a list of potential partners with some thoughts on how, if it's a current partner, how that relationship is working and could be improved. If it's not a current partner, how you might partner with an organization. I find those have been particularly useful for students as they take their product back to the schools. You'll also be collecting data from a couple different sources. You'll be looking at survey data from parents. In many cases, you'll be constructing your own survey, administering it to parents, analyzing the results, and including that into your final recommendations. You'll also be doing field-based interviews with 5 to 7 community opinion leaders, is how I've phrased the category of people I want you to talk to. These are folks ranging from clergy, store owners, extracurricular groups that aren't employees of the school but have partnerships with many of your students. They could be elected officials, either education or non-education, that serve the demographics for your school. Some of you work in geographically bounded schools where this becomes a somewhat easy process of visiting businesses, stores, nonprofits that serve your local area. Some of you, most of you in Orleans Parish, particularly if you're working with a school there, those zones have been blown up in the last few years, and you'll have to think a little more creatively about how do I find community opinion leaders if my community is a pretty large, disparate geographic area. But folks have done it in the past, and you will be able to do that as well. In addition to community opinion leaders, you're surveying your parents. You'll also be looking at recommendations for possible future practices. So you'll lay out an improvement plan for increasing the strength of relationships with parents, community members, and your students. And you'll be writing a grant or a letter of intent for a grant on funding a piece of your program, which will also include a budget for the program that you're recommending. You don't need to get the grant funded for course credit, but you do need to complete the first step in applying for the grant. And I do need to see a full budget on the whole grant, or the whole revised project, even though your grant may only cover a portion of it. For example, one student in the previous semester was anticipating having a community garden as a place for parents and students to engage in positive social activities on the weekends and after school. This was also accompanied by board games and dinner on certain nights and all sorts of non-academic things that families could do together. Well, they just wanted to get a Home Depot grant for $500 to fund the gardening supplies and soil and borders and that kind of thing they needed. So they wrote the grant to Home Depot for that, and that's what they got. Now it's fine as far as I was concerned. So at the end of the semester, you'll submit all of those chunks together, and that'll be your revised school community relations plan. You'll draw on the data you've collected out in the field. You'll draw on the readings from the course to justify the choices for recommended activities you'll be making. And I think of all the courses in our program, this is one of the most applicable and frankly one of the most impressive to other administrators when our students are coming with a completed revised community relations plan document, and often they get implemented at least in part shortly after our students leave the program. The last thing I want to talk about is field experiences. There is a 8-hour minimum field experience component for this course. Most of you will have no problem getting that through your parent surveys, your community leader interviews. If you're a master's of ed admin student, you know that needs to be logged in your live text portfolio along with any pertinent pieces of your final project. If you are not a master's in ed admin student, you'll find an Excel spreadsheet where you can log these field experiences and just submit that by email. You don't need to purchase live text if you're not a certification student in EDAD. We also have a couple of special readings and topics. We have one on community-based schools. It comes in the middle of the semester. We have a couple of readings on that, one of which is my almost to be published piece on the creation of the Morris Jeff School in New Orleans and the community effort that went behind that. We also have a field trip to the Mahalia Jackson Early Learning Center, which is probably the most comprehensive wraparound services elementary school in the metro area. And so we will learn more about them as we get closer to that date. I look forward to chatting with all of you over the course of the semester, and please feel free to email me at any time. I give a pretty quick turnaround on emails. My email is beabout@uno.edu, and you can look that up on Webstar. Take care.